Today we're going to take what we know about slope-intercept form and go from seeing a graph and writing an equation for that line in slope-intercept form. Now I want to review what slope-intercept form is, and it is y equals mx plus b. Now, we also learned what the different parts of that equation mean. So we have our m, and that always stands for the slope. We have our b, which is the y-intercept. And then we do have an x and a y, which is the point on a graph. Now I went ahead and organized that up at the top so you guys can write that down and remember what those mean. So basically what we're going to do is we just need to find out what our slope is of the graph and then what our y-intercept is, and literally plug in those numbers into our equation. So we plug in an m and a b, and then that's just our equation that we have. So the first thing we do is we find what the m and the b are. So our m, remember, is slope. So I like to find 2 points on the graph for slope to do our rise over run, our little ratio. It's easy to find slope that way. So I find 2 points. So I see that the graph on this first example crosses directly at that point, and then it does cross at this point as well. So we go left to right when we do rise over run, and I'm counting up 1, 2, 3, 4 points. So our rise is at +4 because we're making a positive motion, and then we go to the right one. So our slope is 4/1, or just a +4. I also know it's a positive slope because our graph is going up from left to right as I'm reading it. Now our b is our y-intercept. It's where it crosses the y-axis. It's our up and down vertical axis. So we actually put a point right there. It crosses at this point, which is at +1. And now we just plug it in. So instead of y equals mx plus b, I plug in my m and my b. My real answer is y equals 4x plus 1, and that is my answer. Now let's move to the next problem. I first find out what my slope is, and then I find out what my y-intercept is. So the first thing I do is I find 2 points on the graph that I can help with my slope. So I see that there's one that crosses this point, and then I also see a point right here. Okay, so again, I like to do my rise over run ratio. So let's see what happens. Our rise is -2 because we went down, which is a negative action on a graph, and then we go to the right, or run, 1, 2, 3. Our slope is a -2/3, which makes sense because the graph goes down from left to right. Now let's find our y-intercept. Our y-intercept is, again, the point where it crosses the y-axis. It's the vertical axis. It crosses the point at a +3. Now we just plug it into the equation. Instead of y equals mx plus b, we just replace these two variables with the numbers we found. So our answer is y equals -2/3 x plus 3, and that is our answer. Go ahead and try the next problem on your own. Find the slope and y-intercept, then plug the guy in, and check back to see what your answer is. Your answer for this problem is y equals 3/4 x plus 4. This +4 comes from the crossing at the y-axis at a +4. Our 3/4 means that we are rising 1, 2, 3 and running 1, 2, 3, 4 as our slope. Go ahead and try these next 3 on your own as well. It's the same process of finding the slope and y-intercept, then check back to see what your answer is. Here are the answers for these problems. Please look at the different points from the graph. I'm going to go ahead and mark them for you so you can find out what your slopes are if you weren't able to find them. So in the first example, those are the 2 points I used. On the second example, we had a really different slope. Those are the 2 points I used. And then on this last one, it was a little harder but the graph only crosses 3 definite points. There was that one, and then at the very ends of our arrows. So I used these points to help find the slope and the y-intercept. Now we're going to do a couple examples of our horizontal and vertical lines that we've covered in class before. Now the first one's a little hard to see the line, so I'm going to go over it with you guys, but the line that we're going to use is this horizontal line that I'm putting in purple. All right, now just as a reminder, we've learned about stuff, acronyms called HOI and VUX, which we are going to use, but I also want to remind you guys about the different types of slope that we see in horizontal and vertical lines. So the first example is a horizontal line. Because it's a horizontal line, this is a HOI situation. Horizontal stands for HOI, H. So with a horizontal line, we do have a 0 slope. So our slope is 0. Also, our y-intercept is at -1. That is where it crosses the y-axis. So let's plug that into slope-intercept form. We have y equals 0x minus 1. Now to simplify this even more, 0x means there should be no x's available whatsoever. So this literally goes away and we're left with y equals -1. This is the equation for our line. That also helps with the whole situation of HOI. Horizontal line, 0 slope, and then y equals a number, which is exactly what we have here. In the second equation, we are going to have a VUX because this blue line, or now that I'm making it red, is a vertical line, so it's VUX. So when we have that going on, we have vertical line, an undefined slope, but then x equals a number. So what this means is that at x equals -3, this is what our equation is going to be. No matter what equation you plug in, x is equal to -3. Go ahead and try the next 2 examples on your own. Decide if they're a HOI or a VUX, and then see what the equation for that line is going to be. Come back to see your answers. Here are the answers for these equations. Now, this is pretty simple because all you have to see is what axis the line is going through. So this is going through the x-axis at 2, and that's how we got our equation. Same with this one. This crosses the x-axis at 4, and that is our equation there. Now we have a word problem that we're going to talk about. We have a problem dealing with tunnel digging. We're talking about the distance remaining in the tunnel and the amount of months it takes to dig. So it says, write an equation that represents the distance, y in feet, remaining after x months. I like to know what my x and y deal with, however the graph already tells us. Whenever it says to write an equation, they want slope-intercept form. So this is exactly what we've been doing in our examples already. We're just using it in a real-life situation. So I do have to find out what my slope is, and I do have to find out what my y-intercept is. The first thing I'm going to do is find my y-intercept because it's easier. I have that at the y-axis, the graph crosses at 3,500. So that is what my equation is going to entail. Now let's talk about our slope. I am going to use the slope formula to find my slope. So I'm actually going to move my slope piece down and use the formula from 2 points. Remember the slope formula is y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. So let me write the 2 points that I have on this graph. I have 0, 3,500, and I have 4, 1,500. As we've done before, we're going to label our x's and our y's from the graph. Now, I'm putting in x1, y1, and an x2, y2 because this is the first coordinate, this is the second coordinate. Now we just plug in what we need. So y2 minus y1 becomes 1,500 minus 3,500. I just plugged in my y2 and my y1. Now my next one is x2 minus x1, which is 4 minus 0. Again, I just looked at what I labeled. So let's simplify this. 1,500 minus 3,500 is a negative 2,000 over 4 minus 0, which is 4. I can simplify this even more. A negative 2,000 divided by 4 is a negative 500. So that is our slope. Our slope for our equation is negative 500. Now let's actually write the equation that they ask us to write. I plug in my slope of negative 500 and then our positive y-intercept of 3,500. Now, what this really means in this context of the problem is at 3,500, that is how much we started at for digging our tunnel. It's 3,500 feet that we had to dig for our tunnel. Now, negative 500 means we are going for each month, we are digging 500 feet each month of this tunnel. So we're going to have 500 less feet to dig each month for this tunnel. Now let's talk about the very last part of this problem. It says, how much time does it take to complete the tunnel? Well, when you complete the tunnel, there should be 0 feet remaining to dig, okay? So that means we find that point on the graph. In the green, you guys can see the point of 7, 0 means that there are 7 months and 0 feet remaining of the tunnel, which means they're done with it. So it takes 7 months to complete the tunnel.